Welcome to Hawkeyed. I am Dave O'Hara. Pleased to be joining you again this week. In a moment, you'll see our good buddy Mitch Fick joining us. Mitch, of course, as you know, CBS 2, Fox 28, Iowa's News Now sports anchor, but also news anchor. So he does everything at the station. The reason I mentioned sports so much is with Mitch and Owen Sebring, who was on here a couple weeks ago. Of course, you've seen Mitch over the years on this show for the last 6 years we've been on the air. Mitch, Owen, and their producer, Mike, do a fantastic podcast called Eye on the Hawks. You've got to check that out. And if you go to their YouTube page, you'll see all the great work that they do there. Anything that doesn't make the air, they also put on there. So as far as sports coverage goes with the Hawkeyes, there's so much content Hawkeye related. You got to get to that YouTube page. Of course, you want to watch them on the air as well. But on this Veterans Day, on Tuesday afternoon, late afternoon, on Tuesday, November 11th, 2025, in observation or observance of Veterans Day, I would like to thank all the past veterans and current veterans. Thank you for your service. Mitch, as we transition into talking to you, first of all, thanks for joining us as always. It's great to see you. You've got so much content just brimming out of your head here. Let's get you started. So great to see you. Thanks for joining us again. What did you get from today's press availability again on Tuesday afternoon, November 11th? You had the players in the morning and then Kirk Ferentz in the afternoon. Fire away when ready, Mitch, please.
Yeah, I think they're ready to wash out the bad taste of a close loss to a really good Oregon team. And, a lot of outside noise about another West Coast trip. And, of course, the bumps in the road last year against UCLA, a team that was not good in the run game in 2024 and struck gold against the black and gold and figured out how to run the ball out on the ground and came away with a win that I don't think anybody was anticipating there. So you're hoping, and this team is focused on not letting the perceived challenge of a West Coast road trip and the logistics that come with it get in the way of preparations for a really good USC team. And now all of a sudden you've got the chance to be a college ball playoff spoiler against a really good Trojan squad that, for years has been known as a team that can air it out quite a bit. And certain Jaden Mayava is really good at that, but they've got a heck of a run game as well and a defense that can slow you down too. So it's a heck of a test and an opportunity. And everything we heard from those guys and Coach Ferentz today said they're locked in and ready and just ready to turn the page and not dwell on anything that happened on Saturday, but take the good with it. Because again, an offense that puts you right in the spot to knock off the Ducks there. And so certainly a lot to build on here these next 3 games, and then hopefully a bowl game.
Now, some of your great coverage post-game, you and Owen and crew at Fox 28 and CBS 2 Iowa's News Now, post-game interviews with the players. Obviously, they talked about the 24-hour rule, as did Kirk Ferentz. We're going to, after Saturday night, when this gets to Sunday, we're going to look at film, and then we're moving on to SC because it's a short week because they played late Saturday, and now you've got to turn around and travel West Coast. So anything from the players today as far as any residual or from your eyes and from what you witnessed today and recorded, does everybody seem in lockstep that they have turned and burned and they're moving on and it's all SC now, no more Oregon talk? Was that what you observed today?
Yeah, but I think that's how they are every week. If it's a big win, you mollywop Minnesota a few weeks back, it didn't matter the following week. And you lose to Iowa State, it didn't matter. You move on to UMass. And so even as close as the game was, yeah, you sit in it on Sunday, you watch the film, you figure out how to get better, you take the good and leave the bad. It's a focused team. It's a Kirk Ferentz team. We've seen it for 27 years now in different iterations. They know how to flush and move forward. And that's, I think, what has given them so much success over the years. And it's why, in every game this year, they've got an opportunity because partially of that mentality, but also, again, you got your quarterback now who is not lost a whole lot in his career, but has seemed unflappable no matter what. And it's a program that doesn't lose back-to-back games often, and certainly not looking to do that this weekend.
Oh, come on, Mitch. I was looking for some kind of earth-shattering breaking news here. As you said, I would have been shocked if you'd have said, yeah, they are, head down and they're not looking forward. They're still bummed out. So that I was just double checking. You would have shocked the daylights out of me if you'd have said, yeah, Dave, they're not ready. But, it's intriguing when you mention November because November football, let's be blunt. I mean, yes, that was a November loss against Oregon. But, Mitch, I must say to you, when you watch the end of that game, and so let's do this. I don't want to live in retread either, but I do want to give some accolades. That drive that Mark Gronowski engineered the offense on, that 93-yard drive, all the way down the field for his 3-yard touchdown run on 4th down, no less, Mitch. You take a look at that, and that was the story of legends until a minute 50 later, or about a minute 50 later, Sappington makes the game-winning field goal for Oregon. But I've got to give major props and mass kudos to the Hawkeye offense, to the line, to the coaching staff, Tim Lester for calling the plays, but got to give Mark Gronowski kudos for leading that team and executing the game plan in that last drive. That's about next to that opening drive, about the most impressive drive I've seen all year from the Hawks. And Mitch back against the wall when they did it.
It's what you brought Mark Gronowski in for, and it's the type of guy that Tim Lester's been looking for in this program. And man, just game after game, you look at his play calling and more importantly, the execution on the other side of it, because you don't get a good play call unless you execute. It's the type of thing that last year's team, and I would argue certainly 2 years ago, Iowa wasn't putting together a 12-play, 93-yard drive. Now you can maybe hand it off to Caleb Johnson last year, and they did that a couple of times, and he can bust one. And this is a team that's still looking for a lot of explosive plays, but you had one on that final drive, a 3rd down throw to DJ Vanami, and you had one earlier in the game with Jacob Gilbert. This is a team that doesn't have a lot of big explosive runs, but they have been methodical. They can get you your yards when you need it. A great 4th down throw to Reese Vanderzee, and then 4th and goal, everything on the line, and your hero comes through. And that's what Mark Gronowski's been. Even in losses, you've seen him continue to grow, and was right there against Indiana. If he doesn't get hurt, I mean, I think everybody agrees that Iowa probably pulls that game off. If this Mark Gronowski in November is playing early September in Ames, I wouldn't be shocked if that turns into a game-winning drive too, or a game-tying drive. There's just 3 losses by 10 points. I mean, that's, it reminds you of 2010 again, where a team that, lost 4 games by 11 points, I think it was, in the Big Ten, and then you had a touchdown loss at Arizona. It's the difference between, is this a team that goes down as a team of destiny and is legendary, like the 09 squad is remembered, or the 2015 squad who went 5-0 in 1-score games in the regular season. When you win the close ones, you're a hero. If not, it's a lot of what ifs, and that's where Iowa is right now, 9 games in. But they've got a quarterback that every time they step out on the field now, they believe they can win. They've got a great offensive line. They've got a heck of a play caller in Tim Lester, and it's why you go out to Southern California and they're not afraid. They know this is a team they can beat. But you stayed fairly healthy, and it's just a matter of making those plays, and not everybody can make them. There's a reason why there's only one team at the end of the season that's really, truly happy. It takes a lot to go undefeated. It takes a lot to make every dream come true, and Iowa still has a ton on the table. If they can win 10 games for a 4th time in 6 full seasons, not counting 2020, that's a hell of a year. And a lot of programs would be thrilled to be able to do that just once in a 6-year span. So we'll see if they can do it. You got to go out to USC and beat a really tough team first, and then you got to take care of business the rest of the way. But there's a lot still on the table, even if they're not ranked in the top 12 and in a bracket in December.
Folks, there he is. He is Mitch Fick, news anchor, but also sports guy at Fox 28, CBS 2, Iowa's News Now. Check out that fantastic Eye on the Hawks podcast he does with our buddy Owen Sebring, as well as their producer, Mike. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. Mitch and I will be back in just a few moments.
Hawkeye is brought to you by BettorEdge, your ultimate social betting marketplace. With no VIG, you're bound to win more on every bet on BettorEdge. Founded by Hawkeye alum James Siles and proud Iowan Greg Kieski, BettorEdge delivers an unmatched betting experience. Plus, what's not to love when they're committed to supporting charities and children's hospitals near you? Join the action now. Sign up at bettoredge.com/Hawkeye and get $10 to start winning more today. BettorEdge, where your social betting means your bets go further and you win more.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you'll see our buddy Mitch Fick again, who's going to be joining us for the whole show, talking Hawkeye football primarily, but also a little men's and women's basketball and some other fall sports closing out on the University of Iowa campus. Can't wait to get to all that. So, Mitch, a couple of things I wanted to mention. You talked about record. Hawks right now 6-3, 4-2 in the Big Ten, 6-3 overall. As we record this on Tuesday afternoon, November 11th, late afternoon, you had press availability, media availability with the players this morning, and then Kirk Ferentz in the afternoon. A couple of things I wanted to bring up to you. You had mentioned the 6 wins and historically where that sits and going into the last 3 games at USC this week, then next week against Michigan State, senior day at Kinnick Stadium, and then closing out Black Friday in Lincoln against Nebraska the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. So in 2019, when the Hawks completely whipped USC, in the Holiday Bowl in December of 2019. Almost 6 years later, they're playing again for the first time in those last 6 years. Since then, obviously, USC has joined the Big Ten. So I'm talking to you because I'm kind of smiling about this, saying nobody was around. None of the current players were in that game. But it is somewhat recent history. But going west historically, and again, this was long before these players were even born or even had arrived on the University of Iowa campus. Has not been a successful trip. We talked about UCLA game last year. Hopefully they can exercise some of those demons and play well going west. So now USC is in that win or go home mode, or not go to the CFP. They've got a game upcoming against Oregon, USC does yet too, after Iowa. So a lot on, not that a lot's not on the line for Iowa, but very, very great deal on the line still for USC, Mitch.
Yeah, it's huge, and they come in with an extra day's rest too after playing Friday night against Northwestern, a Northwestern team that I think is a lot better than their record, and there's a few examples of that across the Big Ten. I mean, Penn State's the best 3-6 team you'll ever see. I mean, they're incredible this year and just have not been able to get across the finish line in 5 of 6 of those losses. They had Oregon on the ropes a month ago, and look what's happened and how fortunes have changed there. But everything's on the table for USC, and this is the kind of stuff that Lincoln Riley's been chasing since he got to Los Angeles, and he's got every weapon in the world on offense, not just Mayava, but with what Lemon and Lane can do on the outside, what King Miller's been able to do stepping in. As you know, that kid was the 3rd or 4th back on that roster going into the season, and it's a credit to that offensive line that can move a lot of bodies, that has experience. Their right guard, who I think played left guard last year, 77, he swings out and he does a lot of really good stuff, and they can swing and make it look like it's going to be a run and then get it out on a quick screen to one of those receivers and get a big chunk play as well. They've got everything in front of them, and they got the guys to get it done too. And so it's a big challenge for Iowa this weekend.
Mitch, when we talk about the rest of the season with the Hawks, and we talked about the offense today, Oregon smartly kicked the ball away from Caden Weegan on special teams. So Drew Stevens, I want to mention congratulations to him. And I covered this earlier this week on my Hawkeye Historical Highlights, the segment on radio I do on WMT and WHO on Tuesday mornings and afternoons and Thursday mornings and afternoons. Drew Stevens, besides a personal record, set a Kinnick Stadium record and tied a Hawkeye team record with a 58-yard field goal. And not so good weather conditions in crunch time. That was a huge kick to make the game 15-10. And of course, it set up Gronowski's, what we thought at the time, game-winning touchdown. And of course, Oregon came back with a much shorter field goal, 39-yarder, and Sappington makes it and they win the game 18-16. But Mitch, when we talk about what Iowa has left as far as offense, special teams, I thought defensively, and yeah, we can sit there and a lot of fans want to poke holes into the defense and why couldn't they stop Oregon in the last drive? Last time I checked, those guys across the field are on scholarship too. They're a pretty good team. I'm not making excuses. Phil Parker and his defense don't need me to do that. But to hold a team like Oregon to 18 points, and let's not forget, 2 of those points were a safety, so really 16 points. And you've got it in a turnover that they got the ball a little closer. But that defense till the very end. And then, like I said, it took a perfect throw, perfect catch on a big play that TJ Haw had good coverage on. So you take a look at that whole as a defense. I'm glad, as you mentioned, that the Hawks are turning and burning and going on to the next game, because that defense, yeah, I know they gave up a game losing scoring drive, a field goal to win the game. But that defense throughout, Mitch, has improved game after game and played pretty darn well against a very good offensive team in Oregon last week.
They did it against Oregon. They did it against Indiana too. And I had a bold prediction to start the year back in August, saying that even with all of those big names gone from last year's defense, like Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins, obviously, and Quinn Schulte and Sebastian Castro and Y.A. Black, who didn't get near enough credit. He was the heart and soul of that unit. I thought this would be a better collective defense, and they've still been one of the best in the country. And even in a game where they gave up 7 yards a pop and not a 36 carries for Oregon, 25 of them went for at least 4, 19 went for at least 5, 7 went for 11 plus. They kept everything in check. They did it against Indiana as well. This is a really, really strong unit, and it says a lot about a guy like Jaden Montgomery being able to plug in for Jaden Harrell, who's been hurt. And that kid, all he's been is a good soldier since he got into Iowa City and being Jerry's kid and living up to that legacy. TJ Hall, despite getting up the pass to Benson, has been one of the best corners in the Big Ten. I'm a huge Deshaun Lee fan. That guy's taken way too much crap over a litany of years now, 2 or 3 years. He came up with big plays, made a heck of a play on a Dante Moore pass to get a second interception of the year. He's playing really well. Zach Lutmer has been outstanding, and he's playing at an all Big Ten level. Same with Cohen and Xavier Wampa. And that front four, even though they didn't have the best day against the Ducks, is good at as any unit on this Hawkeye team, and one of the best in the Big Ten. And those linebackers are coming along. So, they've turned the page and moving on to USC, but certainly they've shown against the Hoosiers, against the Ducks, they are one of the best defenses in the country because they've gone up against the best and they've more than held their own.
And that future in the linebacker room is looking really good too. I've been very well attuned to a lot of our recruiting experts, Sean Bach being one at CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports. I've been well attuned to Drew Weiskopf, Cam Buffington, and Preston Reese. Those three waiting in the wings, and another good linebacking crew. And that's why I'm glad to hear you say that with Wongpa and the rest of the crew too, that Cooper DeJean, Jack Campbell, Jay Higgins, Nick Jackson aren't walking through that door anytime soon. So they had to replace Sebastian Castro, as you mentioned as well. And these guys have stepped up. And again, maligned a little bit throughout the years, you mentioned sometimes. The line has played extremely well, like Saturday against a team like Oregon, no sacks, and people want to point that out. But again, that's a pretty good team, a very good team. And I think that defense as a whole has gotten better, to your point, every week. And I'm glad we both can give them a little props, because a lot of people, I know that the game-winning drive was given up by that defense, but they hung tough all game and have all games. And Mitch, at the end of the day, that's all you want. I'm not into moral victories, but you want to be into a game where you have the chance to win. And all three of their losses, they've had chances to win. So that's why I wanted to highlight that, because again, I'm not into moral victories to say, oh, well, we were close. You want to have the game in your hands, and the Hawks had opportunities all three of those games. So hopefully we move forward, going to USC, and they can make that all change and come back with a victory. Mitch, let's do this. When we come back, let's close out the show. I just want to get a general sense from you on the vibe and the feeling. You're a Hawkeye alum, University of Iowa alum. What a feeling right now as the fall sports are wrapping up and we're going into the winter sports. I mentioned it earlier. Let's talk about it in this last segment as a whole, with some of the fall sports closing out, going into the winter sports. So, folks, there he is, Mitch Fick. He is the news anchor at Fox 28 and CBS 2. Also a sports guy. Does a fantastic job on the Eye on the Hawks podcast with our buddy Owen Sebring, and of course, Mitch and their producer, Mike. Check that out on their YouTube page. Whatever doesn't make the air, they put on their YouTube page. So you talk about the best and most extensive coverage, I would say, in the state of Iowa, covering Hawkeyes. It's right then and there with these guys. So, Mitch, we'll be right back to close out the show. He's Mitch Fick. I'm Dave O'Hara. This is Hawkeye. Back with more in just a few moments.
You don't have a lot of time to make decisions today if you want to be out front with the newest products. This is Joe Merschman from Merschman Seeds. Did you know that we're one of the first 2 companies to offer Enlist E3 soybeans in the United States? And because of that, you benefit from it. Here's Ben Pieper to tell you more.
With Enlist E3 soybeans, we have a front row seat to the highest yielding germplasm that's on the market. That allows us to focus on the things that matter to you, making sure you get what you ordered delivered on time to ensure the highest yielding soybeans for your farm.
Contact your local Merschman Seeds dealer today. They care and are ready to help you.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, Mitch Fick will be joining us. Mitch, of course, as you know, news anchor and sports guy at Fox 28, CBS 2, Eye on the Hawks podcast. Check that out, please, on their YouTube page. All the extended coverage of Hawkeyes and the great podcast that Mitch, Owen Sebring, and their producer, Mike, do. So, Mitch, let's close out the show talking Hawkeye women's volleyball, best team in years. They've got a 500 record. They've got a handful of matches left yet. About 2 more weeks left, or 2.5 more weeks left of their regular season. Hawkeye women's soccer, by the time this show airs, will have already played their match. They're in the NCAA tournaments as a 5 seed. Field hockey in the Sweet 16. So big doings for the female fall sports. Hawkeye football we talked about in depth. Now we transition to the winter sports. We've got men's and women's wrestling off to a great start. Now we've got Hawkeye men's basketball and women's basketball. I'll talk about great starts. The Hawkeye women most recently with a 119-43 victory over Evansville, setting a team record with 119 points, franchise record or team record, but just a lot of great young talent. I've highlighted that throughout. Addie Deal, much better her second game out than first game, the prize recruit coming in. Of course, Layla Hayes, the big 6'5" center, freshman out of Alaska. Then you've got last year's returner and Ava Hayden and Hannah Stolke in the post, and then other great players to fill in around with Kylie Feuerbach, Taylor McCabe, the rest of those returning upper class women. And then you talk about Hawkeye men's basketball, Mitch, and Ben McCollum's got his guys playing well. Cooper Koch, the only holdover from last year, Fran McCaffrey team. All new guys, but Bennett Sturt's the potential player of the year. I'm throwing all this out at you, Mitch, for a couple of things. Positive vibes around campus, what you're seeing, what you're hearing as you're covering football, but also you as an alumni. The student section down by the basket, we talked to Sean Bach about that last week from 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports, and he said he hasn't heard Carver Hawkeye like that in years. Men's basketball, Mitch, the first two preseason games. And they've got conference games upcoming before the end of the year, plus some other big games, as do the women. But almost 10,000 fans opening night, and then almost 11,000 fans against Western Illinois on Friday night. So, Mitch, I'm pointing out all the great things happening right now on campus. But let's talk specifically men's and women's basketball, what you're seeing from Jan Jensen's team or what you're feeling going into her second year, and then Ben McCollum 2 games into his first year at Iowa.
It seems like all is well right now. You know, it was a big accomplishment for Coach Jensen's team to set that new team record in scoring against Evansville. It was great to see Molly Davis back at Carver Hawkeye Arena. But yeah, people are excited about men's basketball again, and certainly they've been excited about women's basketball for a while. It's Iowa City and Hawkeye athletics are better when people are hyped for hoops. I think that goes back to the 80s, before I was even around, talking about the teams that Coach McCollum grew up rooting for, and had a conversation with him when he was first hired just about what he admired about Dr. Tom's teams. And he got to watch those and really cultivated his philosophy and how basketball should be played. And we've seen a couple examples of that, and it sounds like all is well. And yeah, there's a lot of tough tests ahead and a lot to still prove. It is early November, mid-November, but it's an exciting time in Hawkeye athletics across the board. And it's a special time of year where you've got basketball going on, you've got volleyball going on, you've got football still wrapping up, wrestling's getting started. What other place would you want to be than Iowa City right now to watch a lot of good things going on? And
again, not specifics. That's what I wanted to get into with your sit down from Ben McCollum earlier. And then you and your guys have talked to Jan Jensen, and more continued sellouts for the Hawkeye women, full capacity crowds. And that's the thing, you as an alumni with the student section, from what you've heard or what you've seen either online or heard from other alum, long overdue. You and I have had this conversation in the past, and some of our mutual friends have said this too. Glad to see the student section now on the floor, near the floor under the one basket there. That's got to be that has seemed to go over very well. Early returns so far for the women's and the men's. And you're sitting down with Ben McCollum. He definitely, in your interviews, seemed like a man of the people or of the students. We see him at football games going through the student section, going through the crowd. We see him post-game after his first 2 games so far at home, stopping after post-game interviews and taking selfies with fans and signing autographs. Both teams seem to really be taking the right steps early in the season, Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ask for much more. You're winning basketball games, and people are excited about Hawkeye athletics. And you know, Ben being a fan. I mean, he's a fan who's had a lot of success, and now he gets to be a fan leading the team he grew up cheering for. I mean, it's kind of fairy tale-ish, really. It's a pretty cool story, and yeah, there's a lot to come, but so far so good for Ben McCollum.
One more thing from Ben McCollum as we closed out, when you interviewed him earlier after he got the job, and you talked about that. That was his dream job. That was his, people are saying, well, he stayed at Northwest Missouri State for a long time, won national titles, then went to Drake for 1 year, and now he's at Iowa. But Mitch, you and I talked about this off the air, and let's bring it on the air as we close out here. And you talked about it with Ben McCollum. People want to say, oh, well, he's just looking for the next greener pasture, the next payday. This was his dream job. He was born in Iowa City. He was raised in north central northwest Iowa. He's an Iowa native. His mom got an advanced degree from the University of Iowa. This has been and is his dream job. So when you talk to him, he seemed very at ease coming back to the University of Iowa or Iowa City. But I think this is a good marriage between him, school, and city.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody say he's getting ready to jump ship. I think, yeah, he's a Hawkeye, and he's got the job now. So, he hasn't that. We're early, right? So let's not even think about what's going to happen next year, 5 years, 10 years down the road. Stay in the moment if you're him and you're the fan base, and don't worry about it. We got plenty of work to do in front of us.
2 things, right? And Sean and I kept saying that last week to each other, Sean Bach and I from 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports. 2 games does not a season make or a career make. And there are some bitter Drake people who have said, oh, be careful, he's going to bounce. That's the only reason I brought that up. And we know that, as you said, that's hogwash. That ain't happening. But Mitch, it's always great to catch up with you. I greatly appreciate you taking time, spending the whole show with us, taking a deep dive into football and just glossing over some of the fall sports, going into winter sports. It is always great to talk to you and see you folks. There he is, news anchor and sports guy at Fox 28, CBS 2, Eye on the Hawks podcast, Mitch Fick. Mitch, it's always great to see you, and thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Likewise, Dave. Thank you.
Truly my pleasure. For Mitch Fick and my production partners at BettorEdge and BettorEdge.com, Greg Kajewski and James Siles, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. That's all from us. Thanks to all of you.